This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am here with legendary Master Distiller Richard Paterson. How are you today, sir?
Fantastic, thank you very much, thank you.
Now, you've just taken us through a thrilling tasting of a substantial portion of the range of whiskies that you make at Dalmore here. And you were telling me a little bit about your history in the whiskey industry. You've been in the whiskey industry now for 50 years, just celebrating your 50th year. But I was intrigued to find out that both your father and your grandfather were in the business as well, and at quite a high level, it appears.
Yes, they've always been in the whiskey industry, but my father is the man behind the scenes that really put me in touch with the reality of whiskey. I mentioned to you that taking him to his bonded warehouses when I was only 8 years old and handing me a glass. But really, these are things that I will never forget as long as I live, because number one, it was the first time I'd been in a warehouse, never been there before. I didn't know what to expect. But that smell, as soon as I entered the warehouse, is something that would be with me for the rest of my life. Because no matter what warehouse I go into, or what bodega or what quinta I go into, that smell, that experience will be with me. But then, of course, my father telling me, first of all, are you holding it in the right way? Are you smelling it? And these are parts of my life that, again, I've never forgotten. But what my father always said to me is, make sure that you look at the whiskey, you look at it in every detail, you take your time. And as I say, that's been with me, and that's something I will never forget.
Do you believe there's a particular genetic predisposition that makes you so amazingly skilled at creating these assemblages?
I think what you've got to have in like any job, whether you're a journalist like yourself or a broadcaster or what have you, you've got to have passion, and you've got to have absolutely hundreds and percentage passion all the time. So you need to have that. So really, yes, my parents, my ancestors helped, but you have to be really interested. And that's why I said to you, although I started 50 years ago, I can honestly say the passion I have for my whiskey has been relentless. Even to this day, I think it's even more passion. I'm always trying to exceed and produce a whiskey that will be exceptional, but more importantly, that will be enjoyed and shared with the people that you love.
I very much enjoyed your instruction as to how one should taste a whiskey. I've always had my own methods of doing that are probably related to all my work in the wine world. But if you wouldn't mind taking us through your steps for tasting a whiskey, that would be fantastic.
Well, first of all, what you need to do is to have the right glass, and this is called the Copa Capita glass, and you can see it's almost shaped like a tulip. And this is very important. When I started with my father, my grandfather, the stem was slightly shorter. It wasn't quite as bulbous as this, but it does the trick. First of all, what you need to do is to put it in the glass. You look at the color, you swirl it around, bring it up, and you say hello. Now, I don't want you to look at it and go like this, as some people do. You must make full use of your nose. Now, you see I've got a big nose because my great-great-grandfather was, of course, Cyrano de Bergerac. But nevertheless, what you need to go is go up and say hello. And this nostril, is it right there? Is it right there? You need to come to a part of the nostril that is really going to explore the whiskey. So you bring it up and you say hello. Then you go back to it and you say, how are you? And then you go back up and say, quite well, thank you very much. But you need to just touch it gently. And you're going to see the alcohol at the beginning, you forget the alcohol, and you go into the very heart of the whiskey. And it's the very heart of the whiskey that's going to open up. Now, a women's perfume will have at least 26 different nuances. Well, it's the same different number of nuances, the smells, the odors that will come from the whiskies. But when we're talking about Dalmore, we're talking about the top note of chocolate orange, cinnamon, spice. You've got marzipan, but that chocolate orange will always be lingering there in the background. Now, when it comes to the taste, you don't knock it back. You really take a long time. Now, this is an 18-year-old Dalmore, so you put it in the palate. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let it open up. Now you're looking into it. Be by putting the liquid on the top of your tongue, holding it there underneath the tongue, a little bit spicy to begin with, a little prickle, pétillant and spritzig, and then put it back up the middle. You're making full use of the palate, you're warming the whiskey up, then you swallow, let it go down, bring it down there, and then you let it come back up again. You're really going in. First taste is always important, but it's the second taste. And then let it go down. The second taste will allow you to explore deep into the whiskey. Even when you're chewing a great food, you don't swallow the food, you chew it. The more you chew the food, the more you'll extract the flavours. It's the same with the whiskey.
We've been speaking a lot about the importance of the cask and the influence that this has on the end product. I've always thought of the casks as being quite important, but not quite as important as you stated today.
Yeah, the cask is king as far as I'm concerned. 70% of the influence, 65 to 70% of the influence is getting the right cask. But it's not just any cask. That cask must be compatible, must enhance that particular whiskey of mine or somebody else's. But what it must do is must come together. So when we talk about sherry for Dalmore, it's not just any sherry. This is Gonzalez Bay's Methuselah sherry, 30 years old, which combines with the weight, the body of that particular whiskey. And then of course the port wine, Graham's Port, a 25-year-old, 40-year-old tawny, really helps to bring out these flavours. So you need to find the cask, the right cask, but it must be compatible with whiskey. And once you find it, it'll allow the whiskey to glow.
How important would you say the localized terroir, the water and the like were?
Yeah, the water makes its contribution. So does the sea air or the dampness of the warehouses. But there are many other factors, the way we mature it, how long we mature it, how long we season the wood, how long is left there, the shape of the warehouse. Is it the first level, second level? They too will have, and Mother Nature, don't forget about Mother Nature, will have it. So yes, terroir is important, the barley is important, the water is important, but it's a combination of all these things, but it still comes back to the cask to really change it. Yes, the distillation I'll mention to you has to be right, but really our distillation practices are pretty consistent. We know exactly what that spirit will behave like, how we can distill it when it comes off that final, cut, as we call it, before it goes into the cask.
Now, you've made many a whiskey in your lifetime now, assembled some absolutely stunning blends that we've tasted today. Stunning malt whiskey blends, I'm meaning here. It's not. But do you have a particular favorite? I mean, you have your more entry level, your 12-year-old, shall we say, all the way up to some of the most extravagantly priced special editions. Is there one particular bottling that you're most proud of?
I think probably it's a very good question. Yes, I love the 12-15, but the one that really, to my mind, that I drink most of all when I'm traveling, and it's not the most expensive, it's right there bang in the middle, is the Dalmore King Alexander. Yes. This is the only single malt in the world with 6 different finishes. These are 6 separate assemblages. We take our matured Dalmore, we put it into port, Madeira, Marsala, Cabernet Sauvignon, small batch bourbon and Methuselah sherry. Each one will take a certain length of time, but once it attains that character I'm looking for, we then put the assemblage together, we hold it, we marry it, and then we bottle it. We bottle it at 40% alcohol. Why 40% alcohol? Because that's the easiest way of drinking it. And when you actually sip it and savour it, serve a creme brulee, serve a coffee, Nicaragua Java coffee, 2 mouthfuls of that. Serve the Dalmore King Alexander, hold it long in the mouth, let it go down. Then take some chocolate, 72, 80, maybe 82% cocoa fat, let it melt in the mouth, and that will combine together. All these combinations will not only turn a dinner, but it will turn it into a banquet. So that is one of my favorites, but I have to say each expression I hold dear in my heart, and they give me, such love and tenderness too.
Well, thank you very much for treating us with such tenderness this afternoon. We really appreciate the tasting you took us through, and thank you for joining us at Good Food Revolution.
Okay, well, as we say in Scotland, love makes the world go around. That's not true. Whiskey makes go around, but twice as fast. Slàinte mhath.
Bye for now.